Hi everyone and welcome to this Pokemon VGC 2019 Sun Series Pokemon Guide, and in today's episode we're going to be looking at Kyogre. So, Kyogre is one of the most dominating Pokemon in the format, so what better way to kind of kick off these guides in the 2019 season. As you guys already know, the season is split over 3 separate parts, so we're starting with the Sun Series. That means no Z crystals, no Mega Stones, and no orbs are allowed. So we can't have Primal Kyogre or Primal Groudon or Mega Rayquaza. We can just have a good old Kyogre. So it's a little bit of a throwback to the 2010 format, where the last time we had just regular Kyogre. So it's going to be kind of nice for myself going back to look over this Pokemon. It is very nostalgic, but what better place to start is just looking at its type, its base stats, and its weaknesses and resists and things like that. So Kyogre is a water type. It has the ability Drizzle, which summons the rain to the field for 5 turns. It has very good base stats, as all of the other restricted Pokemon in the format do. It's HP 100, attack 100, defense 90, special attack 150, special defense 140, and speed 90. So kind of gone along the same lines as the other restricted, or many of the other restricted Pokemon, with that base speed of 90. It's one thing I would say going into this format, you guys should get yourself very familiar with the restricted Pokemon and their base speeds, because they're very important. Knowing what base speeds each Pokemon have, it'll make it so much easier going into games, just having that information under your belt. But we can see here that Kyogre has a whopping 150 special attack stat and a really good special defensive stat of 140 base, so it can take the hits as well as dish out massive amounts of hits. It is a water type, and the rain also boosting those water type attacks as well. You can see that from below we've got the weaknesses, immunities, and resistance, and what it's damaged by normally. I pulled all this information off Bulbapedia. I'll link it down in the description if you guys want to go across them, but I'm sure you're aware of it already. So you can see that Kyogre, being a water type, it's weak to grass and electric. It doesn't carry any other weaknesses, which is quite nice. And one of the pluses about, you know, these bulky water type Pokemon that you get in every format, resists, obviously steel is a big one, fire another big one, and the Drizzle ability with the rain pulling that in even more. Resists other water type attackers and ice type attackers. So very nice typing. We all know what water types are like. Very bulky, very solid, very reliable Pokemon, and Kyogre is no different. So going on to sets, what I want to do in these little guides that I'm doing is just give you some basic standard sets that you can go away and run, and kind of give you an overview of how people are running them already in the format, as well as throwing some kind of curveballs here and there with just some thoughts of how else you could maybe look at running them. But for the most part, everything's going to be quite standard, just to give you guys an overview, a rundown of how Kyogre runs, functions, and how you kind of have to expect that it will be played in this first Sun Series format. So first set, big set, one that you're going to see time and time again, just because it's so effective, and that is the Choice Scarf variant. Most of the time the nature will be modest. You're going to see sometimes people probably going for timid to get the jump on things like Tapu Lele that might be scarfed and modest, so you get the jump on that. But I would always suggest running something like modest if you're going to go Choice Scarf. You want to be going, you're going to be outspeeding most things, and you want to be hitting it for as hard as you can. Water Spout is going to be the spread move. It is based off your HP stat, the damage that it's doing, so you want to make sure that you've got that, because you will be, for the most part, going first. Thunder is for coverage against opposing Kyogres, other water types that kind of wall you. Ice Beam, again, further coverage, hits grass types as well. And then that 4th slot for the Scarf is kind of open to whatever you really need. I tend to go Scald there. It's a bit more reliable when your HP's down. If you're playing Kyogre and it's late game and you've still got it round, but its HP's not as high as it wants to be, you've got that reliable Scald to do massive damage still under the rain. You could go for Origin Pulse, that is another option. It's not as accurate as Skull, but it is a double target attack, which is also very nice. And then you've also got Surf as well, which is something that you have to consider depending on what other Pokemon you've got in your team. So if you've got something like Gastrodon or a Water Absorb Pokemon in your team, Surf could work out pretty well, or something with telepathy like Oranguru. That could also be very nice. So just things to think about there. But the EV spread just pretty basic, and you know, at the start of the format, you're not really going to need to do much else with it. It's there, it's going to outspeed a lot of things, and it's going to just be hitting as hard as you want it to. So it's pretty basic, but there is the Choice Scarf set, and it's probably going to be the more common one that you see going around on the ladder and battle spot and things like that. So moving on is going to be the next one, is going to be a Life Orb set. I would tend to go more of a timid nature here because you don't need as much special attack as you would. I think the Life Orb kind of makes up for the power output here, 30% boost to all damaging attacks, and the timid nature with max speed gives you a few jumps on like a lot of other things, you know, and just making sure if you're going up against other restricted Pokemon in that base 90 bracket that you more than likely be outspeeding them, because people tend to go for more power than speed a lot of the time. With the Life Orb you kind of make up for that, and you can also cater your team to support this kind of Kyogre as well with speed control. Icy Wind, very nice here, and you can also go modest as well. It's entirely up to yourself, and it does really revolve around what your team is capable of doing, but again, I haven't went for anything flash with the EV spread. It's just a sample set for you guys, like I said at the beginning. But with the Life Orb set you do get access to Protect, which can be nice to maneuver around and switch up your board positions, give yourself room to maybe switch out Protect, get something in beside Kyogre where you can support a little bit better to get an attack off the next turn, even Tailwind and then attack. So it has got its pluses. The Life Orb hits extremely hard, especially a full power Water Spout, and the thing is with the Life Orb, it is a bit detrimental with Water Spout, because you are losing HP each time that you use it, so the Water Spout is concurrently getting weaker every time that you lose health. But hopefully with the Life Orb set you want to play it in a very explosive team, a very hyper offensive team, or you want to just make sure that you kind of lock in a board position where you're going to be getting those Water Spouts off, and whatever you're hitting is going to be KO'd. So you have to play it a little bit differently from other Kyogre, but I would still suggest like the Life Orb is very strong on Kyogre, and something you should look at, because in a format without Z moves and Mega Evolutions, you want to be looking at ways of how, if you can't boost up a Pokemon, how you can hit a lot harder. And that brings us on to our next item, which is going to be the Choice Specs item. Again, I've went for timid, a very standard EV spread, and I'm not really going to get overcomplicated with these guides either, because I want to keep things nice and simple, things that you can pick up, just put into the showdown ladder and just start playing with. But Choice Specs, you do lose a Protect. I have went for timid again because the specs obviously boosts your special attacks, so you'd be hitting so hard. But with this Kyogre set, again, in an item choice, again, it's a little bit different from the Choice Scarf. It's a little bit different from the Life Orb with how it's going to play. You're going to need speed control in your team. You're going to need Tailwind. You're going to need Icy Wind, especially playing a timid variant. You could always play Choice Specs with a quiet variant, but you're going to need Trick Room support, and you're going to need your team to cater around this Kyogre. Kyogre is going to be kind of a centerpiece to most teams, where you're wanting to get it in particular circumstances and just launch off those Water Spouts where you're not threatened, where you're not troubled. You know, you can just launch them off and just clear the field, because that's what Water Spout tends to do. You lock in your weather, you get it on the field in a position where it's not going to be vulnerable to taking any big attacks, and you can just clear things off the field. So it's a nice end game thing. Moving on, this is a little curveball, like I mentioned at the start. I will throw in curveball sets and spreads and things like that throughout these guides, but as I say, I want to keep them short as possible, because I'm going to be doing a lot of them, covering all the restricted Pokemon in this first Sun series. And as you know, we've got 3 series to go through, so there's a lot of Pokemon to cover. But this set is an Iron Ball or 50% Berry set, so with an Iron Ball, it does put Kyogre speed with a 0 IV, and a minus nature, so you can underspeed all base 45 Pokemon, so that's quite nice. So under Trick Room, you'd be going first if you've got a good Trick Room supporter. That would be very nice, and that boosts, you know, helps you get those water spouts off. It's just kind of reverse to what a Scarf would do. The moveset as well, you've got Protect there, Thunder and Ice Beam, very standard, but all kind of along the same lines. Kyogre needs the coverage moves to act how it does. You can also choose to go for Origin Pulse or Scald over the Water Spout if you don't feel like you can get the most out of it. Origin Pulse might be a bit better, especially if you go on 50% Berry, and you know you're not going to be able to take many hits. But the thing is, again, it works so differently from how the previous 3 Kyogre sets work. You know, you're going to need Trick Room support, you're going to need a Trick Room mod support around setting that Trick Room up, and then being able to get Kyogre in and launch those big attacks off, you know, as you need them to. But I kind of like the berry here. I also like the Iron Ball, but as you can see, it's got a EV spread, 252 HP, 80 defense, 84 special attack, and 92 special defense. And there's some quick calcs just down below listed for you. So this spread will take a Brave 204 attack. That's kind of your standard power whip from Brave Ferrothorn, and also 252 Timid Life Orb Thunderbolt from Tapu Koko under Terrain. So it's pretty bulky. And with those calcs, that's where the Super Berry kind of, you know, the 50% berry comes in pretty nicely there. So it's just another way for you guys to try out Kyogre and just sample some of the other things it can do outside of Scarf as well. But I would suggest trying every single sample set out if you can, and looking at teams and what you can pair with them. But moving on to pairings and partners for Kyogre, we'll look at some common partners that you're going to see with Kyogre. You're going to get 100% probably one of the biggest partners you'll see with Kyogre in this first part of the season is going to be Ludicolo. It has that swift swim ability, doubling its speed in the rain that Kyogre brings to the field, and it is a nice grass water typing as well. So the water typing there boosted by the rain, and the grass typing giving you access to things where you'll be able to hit opposing water types, ground types, and all sorts of things. And Ludicolo has fast fake out support to help support Kyogre. It has the grass typing, which threatens, and it's one of the best opposing counters to opposing Kyogres as well. And it really kind of pairs nicely with a hyper offensive kind of mode in your team. Kyogre and Ludicolo was very strong back in the day, and it's not going to change anytime soon. So one to look out for and to try out as well, guys. Moving on, Incineroar, very common partner with Kyogre already, and for good reason. You've got that fake out support again, and also intimidate support as well. That, you know, weakens attacks from things like Ferrothorn, from Kartana, that are going to threaten Kyogre, and the fake out is always very, very helpful for Kyogre, especially like the Scarf variants that just want to get attacks off and not be threatened by opposing fake out or other threats that it kind of has coming down onto it. Incineroar also a Dark and Fire type. The Fire typing, although it is kind of restricted a little by the rain Kyogre brings to the field, still very handy to have, and for getting things like Kartana and Ferrothorn and stuff like that. And as we've mentioned, the Intimidate support does help out with those physical type threats that Kyogre does not like to face down against. And because its physical defense is the weaker of the two of its defensive stats, you know, the Intimidate does really help support that there. Moving on to other partners, and this is one that I absolutely love, and it's Sarina and the Queenly Majesty ability. It is a grass typing again, but the Queenly Majesty ability, and this I think works perfectly with the Choice Scarf variant. We've seen it do very well on the ladder already, but it stops any priority onto Kyogre. Now, one of the beauties about Choice Scarf is if the opposing player hasn't got anything that will outspeed it off the bat, then they kind of tend to rely on fake out support to get their Tailwind or speed control going. But with Sarina there, it just denies that fake out support from the opposing person, meaning you can get those water spouts off for free. You've got feint and helping hand support to stop any protects on the water spout or anything else, and you also get access with Sarina to not only grass typing, which helps against opposing Kyogres, Ludicolos and things like that, but you get access to low kick and high jump kick, so fighting type attacks as well, which is also very nice against Incineroar, Ferrothorn, Cortana, the list goes on and on and on. So very nice partner and one of my favorites at the moment, so it'll be interesting to see how much that grows in popularity over the next few weeks. And moving on, also another very good partner. There was also a very good partner in 2016 and 2010. Well, probably not 2010 because I don't think we had abilities back then, but definitely 2016, which is Raichu, and it's a little electric type which you all know about, and it has that lightning rod ability, pulling any electric type attacks that would threaten Kyogre. So opposing Kyogres are kind of forced to go for more spread damage, like Water Spout or Ice Beam into the Raichu to get rid of it before they can launch off their Thunder type attacks. But it does kind of hinder you as well, because you know the Lightning Rod will pull in your attacks as well. But that's something you have to play around a little bit. But the Fake Out support, it is a very fast Fake Outer, so it is very nice in that respect. But it does give you extremely good protection against big threats like Tapu Koko and other electric type attacks that you might see popping up and around the format to deal with Kyogre. Right, and the last one I'm going to mention in this little guide is Bronzong, because if you go down a route with an Iron Ball or a 50% Barrier, or just a very slow, quiet Kyogre that you want to run in Trick Room, then you need a Trick Room setter, and I think Bronzong is an ideal Trick Room set. It has a Levitate ability, it does have Heat Proof, but I don't feel like it's very necessary, considering that you've got Rain to support the Bronzong's fire weakness anyway. So I would always suggest, if you're going with Bronzong, go with a Levitate ability, because you've got the Rain, like I say, and it supports it anyway. It does offer that Trick Room support, benefits from the Rain, works extremely well, like I've said, with the Iron Ball or just quiet builds of Kyogre. And once you've got the Trick Room up as well, you've got access to stuff like Skill Swap, which is a nice option for weather control as well. Say your opponent switches in Tita or Groudon or something. Once you've got the Trick Room up, you can Skill Swap, get the Rain back up, and hopefully Kyogre will underspeed whatever you've got in front of you and get a free Water Spout off in the Rain, which again should clear the field. So just another option there for you to think about. And then we're going to move on to finish off the video with looking at threats and counters to Kyogre. So obvious threats are going to be grass types. Ludicolo we've already covered. Ferrothorn, another one, huge one. If you do go down a Trick Room route with Kyogre, you're going to have some very strong text against Ferrothorn, because Ferrothorn under Trick Room will underspeed your Kyogre, and it will be able to knock it out pretty easily, and it just threatens big damage and just disrupts Kyogre. Even if you haven't got Trick Room, it's a nice switch in. It resists those water type attacks. It's bulky enough, and it can throw out some big damage. So that's something you need to really consider if you're building a Kyogre team, having a solid check to Ferrothorn. Cortana is another one. It will outspeed non-Scarfed variants. It does have access to Leaf Blade, and does cause you a lot of problems. It has access to Tailwind as well, obviously the speed control there to get the jump on your team altogether. So Cortana is another one. It is frail. Choice Scarf variant of Kyogre can do a lot of damage to it, so if you're playing that set, you need to get yourself into a position where, you know, Cortana is generally going to carry a sash, I would imagine, so you're going to need to be able to break that sash and then get Kyogre in where it can outspeed it. Or you could use Icy Wind support for Kyogre, and then just to knock it out, because we all know that Cortana has got paper thin defenses, no pun intended there. So it's manageable. I think it's a lot more manageable than Ferrothorn, but it's still something you need to be aware of. We've got a Abomasnow as well, another threat. It does get rid of the Rain, which is a big thing, because Kyogre without its Rain is nowhere near as potent or powerful or threatening. So that, you know, Abomasnow is going to be slower than Kyogre for most parts, going to get up its tail, and it does have those grass type stabs that really do threaten Kyogre pretty heavily. And then you got Tapu Bulu as well. It brings the grassy terrain, and it does resist those water type attacks. You've got to be careful and make sure that you're not taking too much damage from those ice beams from Kyogre that they normally generally carry, but Tapu Bulu is going to be able to deal one-on-one with Kyogre most of the time very well. You've got the electric types, which is the other big weakness for Kyogre. Koko, Zapdos, Zekrom, Raichu, all things that will outspeed Kyogre. You know, Zekrom does speed tie with it, but all threaten it very heavily. If it's a Choice Scarf variant of Kyogre, I know people are tending to run Choice Scarf Tapu Koko as a means to get around it, to get damage on it, to weaken those water spouts early on. So that's something you need to be aware of, and that's where the Lightning Rod support comes in very nicely. You've got to think about these things, but otherwise you can do a lot of damage. Zekrom there really the only thing that can take the water spouts pretty well for the electric group that I've just selected here. And these are just suggestions as well, and just things that I've just kind of picked out from the top of my head that you need to be aware of when you're playing Kyogre. Resist and wall Pokemon. Gastrodon, it's going to resist all your water type attacks. It's not going to take any damage from Thunder, and it can deal and eat Ice Beams pretty well. And any water type attacks that you're coming out from, if you're locked into Water Spout or Origin Pulse or anything like that, it's going to boost it up pretty quickly. It's not going to take any damage, and it has access to recover, so you need to be very aware of Gastrodon and have good answers to that. Rotom Wash as well, going to be able to take most attacks from Kyogre pretty well, and does threaten back with electric type attacks, so you need to be careful with Rotom Wash, aware of it. Palkia is just a wall in itself. It's going to resist the water type attacks, and because it's Dragon Water, it's not going to take too much damage from the, will take damage from the electric thunder type attacks that you generally carry in Ice Beams, but it's going to be able to deal out a lot more damage to you than you are to it, and it does outspeed you as well, so that's something that you need to be aware of. Dialga's kind of along the same lines as that, although it doesn't take half as much damage from the ice. And the electric type attacks, it kind of resists everything, can set up Trick Room on you, can just throw out big dragon type attacks and things like that. And with Tapu Fini not being so prevalent in the format right at the beginning of the season, those dragon type attacks are kind of more useful at the moment than they might be later on in the format. And then finally we'll wrap things up with weather disruption. So if you've got Kyogre, like I mentioned earlier with the Abomasnow, taking away its rain is one of the first things to help you get around it. T-Tar does that with its sand. Ninetales has hail as well as that Abomasnow, and has access to freeze dry, which will hit Kyogre pretty hard. And then you've got Groudon as well, which is its kind of nemesis, if you'd like to say that. It brings the sun, gets rid of the rain, but at the same time Groudon's still not really capable of taking on Kyogre even in the sun because of its ground typing. It's not like the old wars of 2016 where if you get Groudon in you don't take any damage from water type attacks. You've got to remember that Groudon is still a ground type and it will take damage from water type attacks. It's not going to enjoy being switched in on a water spout. So things to consider: a Wide Guard does really help against Kyogre. Obviously its main big attack is going to be Water Spout, so that's one way to get around it. And other Scarf Pokemon that are faster than those base 90 are really helpful. Like I like Tapu Lele for that. I think Tapu Lele can just do a massive chunk of damage to it before it can get an attack off. But it's really all about your build and how you support Kyogre. It's definitely going to be one of the top tier Pokemon in this early format before we switch over to the next format next year. So it's definitely something you have to look out for. But we'll wrap things up here, guys. I have went on a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I hope you found it enjoyable enjoyable. I hope you've enjoyed the video, even though I've just given you a few sample sets, giving you an idea, a bit of an introduction to Kyogre. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comment section below, and I will see you all for the next guide very soon. So thank you very much, guys. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very shortly. So until then, bye bye.